So with the rise of social media, traditional media now is getting subverted and undermined. And this is one of the things that I'm seeing, which is concerning to me, is that people now have way more autonomy and control over their own epistemology, which means their own knowledge base, their own worldview. See, as we democratize, we give more power to everybody in different fields. You have more power with your sexuality. You're more powerful with regards to where you can travel in the world. You're more powerful economically. You're more powerful because you have more technology. You're more powerful because you have more, career opportunities and so forth. You have more freedom. But as you give people more freedom, it takes a lot of responsibility now. Now something that was done for you by some authority figure, now you have to do it yourself. And if you don't do it properly, you fuck it up. So in the past, epistemology wasn't even a word that people understood. Your worldview was handed down to you by your church and your culture. There was no thing like where you're like, okay, well, should I be a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew or a Hindu, or should I be a Buddhist, or should I be an atheist or a theist, or should I be a solipsist, or should I be a nihilist, or should I be a Nietzschean, or should I be a conservative or a liberal? You didn't have these choices. And of course, a lot of people still don't have those choices today, but you have more of a choice today than you ever did before in the past. So in the past, you were born into a Buddhist family, you were a Buddhist, that's all you knew, that's it. You didn't even question it. In a sense, that's easy. It's easy to live life that way, where you're only given one opportunity, one possibility. It's almost like an arranged marriage. See, arranged marriage is also counterintuitive because you would think like, well, if my parents just, arranged a marriage for me, that would be so terrible. I don't even know how I would live with that person. We would probably fight all the time. We would not get along. We would be so incompatible because I got to choose the most compatible person for me, right? That's kind of how we think in the West. But actually, counterintuitively, like in India, where they do arranged marriages a lot, it almost works the opposite. Because if you do submit to the authority of your parents to pick your mate for you, that's actually a huge relief. Think about it. You don't have to go dating anymore. You don't have to have all the stress of thinking about, am I going to die alone? Is that person going to like me? What if I get this person, but then I like that other person more? There's all these complicated choices, and we sort of hang ourselves with all this freedom. Whereas if your parents, just like when you were born, if your parents said, oh, you're marrying person X, we already have it set in stone, you're just going to marry that person. If you resign to it and you say, okay, fine, I guess I have to because there's no alternative, and you do it, in a sense, you're so all in on that bet with no alternative, you actually make it work. You actually are so committed, you have that necessary commitment that is needed to actually go through the arguments and the challenges and actually learn to love that person in a more unconditional way because you had to. Whereas if you just have sex with the hottest person you see, in a certain sense, that's a very shallow reason for dating somebody, is based on their physical appearance. And then you quickly find somebody else that you like more because they're more attractive or whatever. But in an arranged marriage, you don't have that freedom. And in a sense, that actually helps you to maintain a cohesive marriage. Now, of course, it comes with a lot of downsides as well. Those are pretty obvious. I won't even mention those. But anyways, my point with this arranged marriage thing is that, so going back to this epistemology business, you see now you have a lot more responsibility over how you what worldview you're going to adopt. There's more worldviews than ever. Which one is right? Which one is healthy? Which one is conducive to democracy? There's a lot of traps now with epistemology Because see, the problem is that most people don't even know what the word epistemology means. They have no appreciation of it. They have no appreciation of the dangers of epistemology and belief systems and worldviews and ideologies and paradigm locks and all this stuff we've talked about in the past. They have no idea how any of this stuff works. So what they do is they just go online and they just start watching some YouTube channel or some podcast. And it could be Alex Jones, or it could be some, conservative person or some liberal person, and they just get sucked into it, whatever it is. They're not consciously choosing the information that they're watching. They're unconsciously just consuming information. And places like Facebook and YouTube make it very easy to unconsciously just consume information, go down some particular ideological rabbit hole, and then get stuck in it. See? And so you might say, but that's freedom, that's great. That is great, except here's the problem. In the past, the primary worldview that you were programmed with from your culture, from your monoculture, yes, it was very narrow and limited, but it was also, in a certain sense, it was time-tested and it was effective because it survived many generations of trial and error and survival challenges. It had to survive all that, otherwise it would die out. So in a sense, only the best worldviews, the most effective, I should say, worldviews were able to survive. And they weren't too extreme either. For example, a worldview like the KKK, it couldn't have been the mainstream worldview because it was too extreme. Certain worldviews are so extreme they have to be niche in order to survive. They can't survive at mass scale. So even though, atheists love to criticize, for example, the evils of religion and things like Islam or Christianity and how stupid and how ignorant they are and how much evil this has caused, actually, we can flip this on its head. In a certain sense, these major worldviews like Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, and so forth, these were the most moderate and sensible worldviews. What you shouldn't take for granted is how many other extreme worldviews existed, which were way worse than these major worldviews. They were so bad, so extreme, so toxic that you probably even haven't heard of them because they never became mainstream, because they died out long ago, or simply because they still exist, but they exist in a very specialized, narrow way, and they can never fully go mainstream. So, for example, the KKK can never go fully mainstream, even though it still exists. But you see, the danger now is that now that you have access to all the media you want, now that it's been democratized, but you're still a child epistemologically. You just go around, stumble into various conspiracy theories, and now you can really get trapped into some cult, into some radical ideology, which you might think that, but it's better than the mainstream. It's better than all those elites that were controlling me, but actually it's worse. Just because something is different than the status quo does not automatically make it better. Don't make that mistake. I see a lot of naive people these days who are getting into politics, who are starting to follow some of these populist channels on the left or the right, which are now demonizing CNN and MSNBC and are demonizing the elite media and the New York Times and all this sort of stuff. And they think that they're so much better. But actually, they're not better. They're even stupider. You have to be very careful about whether your critiques of a system are from above or from below. A lot of these critiques are actually from below. Before you go criticizing a system, understand why it exists in the first place. See, it's very easy for some ignorant, naive person to sit back and criticize the politicians, the Democrats, the Republicans, the Clintons, the Bill Gateses, the this and that. Yeah, it's easy to sit there to criticize all this. You can criticize Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and all this. But the reality is, if I had to bet money on who would actually be able to make a more stable, successful society, I would bet on all those people over you. Over some fucking YouTuber who sits there and rants and complains and criticizes all day, but doesn't know how to achieve jack shit. It's very easy and tempting to sit and to criticize. It's a lot harder when you actually go and try to lead others in a conscious manner towards something better than what already exists.